Don't buy these 17 ice cream brands if you're over 60 and 8 that are actually real ice cream, not frozen fillers that spike your blood sugar. Here's what I discovered when I started reading the actual ingredient labels on the brands seniors are buying every single week. There is one specific hidden ingredient lurking in the majority of supermarket ice cream that doesn't just spike blood sugar, it directly interacts with blood pressure medications that millions of Americans over 60 are taking right now. And the manufacturers know exactly what they're doing. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, I'm going to reveal the exact mechanism that makes this interaction dangerous, and it is not what you think it is. If you're watching this, you likely have someone you care about over 60 who is walking into the grocery store and reaching for brands they think are safe. Subscribe right now so you never miss a warning about what's actually in these products. And please, leave a comment below. Tell me, which ice cream brand have you been buying for years, and which one surprised you most in this list? Hold on, I need to establish something critical before we go any further. The FDA sets a very specific number. Ice cream must contain a minimum of 10% milk fat to legally be called ice cream. This number is the foundation that explains every single brand on our avoid list. But there is something far more dangerous happening beneath that number, and it has nothing to do with whether you're getting cream or fillers. If you take a blood pressure medication, and statistically, if you're over 60, you likely do, your body is already managing sodium levels in a very delicate way. Your kidneys are working harder than they used to. Your arteries are stiffer. Your medication is compensating for that. And then you eat ice cream 3 nights a week thinking you're having a harmless treat. What you don't see is how certain additives in that ice cream are working directly against what your medication is trying to accomplish. The manufacturers are not breaking any laws, the label technically complies with regulations. But the combination of what is inside that frozen container and what is inside your medicine cabinet creates a cascade that your aging cardiovascular system cannot fully process. Before we continue deeper into which brands are doing this, I need to point you towards something. If you want the complete mechanics of how these ingredients actually interact with common medications, the step-by-step breakdown of sodium retention, the role of emulsifiers in intestinal permeability, and exactly which additives cross the blood-brain barrier and affect medication efficacy, that is all covered in depth in our guide. You can find it in the description and pinned to the top of the comments. This is where I've mapped out the actual pharmacological pathways, not just the ingredient lists. It is the reference you need to fully understand why these brands are dangerous, not just take my word for it. Let's start with Great Value Ice Cream. This is the brand most seniors choose because of price. Less than $3 for a large container. The ingredient list reads like a chemistry textbook. 4 different sweeteners stacked in sequence. Sugar, brown sugar, corn syrup, and molasses. That redundancy is not accident. That is compensation. When the milk fat content is borderline, barely meeting that 10% minimum, the manufacturer has to overdrive the sweetening to make the product taste like ice cream at all. Your taste buds are expecting the richness of real cream. When that cream is not there, sweetness is the only tool they have to create the sensation of satisfaction. But the real problem is not the sweetness itself. It is what comes after the sweeteners on that label. Great Value uses mono and diglycerides, synthetic emulsifiers that allow water and oil to mix in a way they never would naturally. These molecules are small enough to be absorbed directly through your intestinal wall. Once they cross into your bloodstream, they affect how your cells process sodium. If you are taking a diuretic to manage blood pressure, and millions of seniors are, your medication is working to remove excess sodium from your body. Mono and diglycerides slow that process down. They create a subtle but measurable retention of sodium in your tissues. You might notice mild swelling in your ankles. You might feel a slight puffiness in your face. You might not notice anything for years, but your kidneys are working harder and your medication is becoming gradually less effective. Breyers is the next brand on our list, and this one carries a particularly troubling history. Breyers built an entire brand identity around the phrase all natural for decades. Their packaging, their advertising, their reputation, all centered on that promise. Then Unilever acquired them and made a strategic decision. They would reduce the milk fat content below the 10% threshold and reformulate the product using guar gum, locust bean gum, and Terra gum, a gum network that mimics the texture of real cream without actually providing it. The packaging did not change. The logo remained identical. The colors stayed the same. Only the product changed. Most Breyers products are now legally classified as frozen dairy desserts, not ice cream. Frozen dairy dessert is a category created specifically for products that fail to meet ice cream standards but are still edible and shelf-stable. Here is where this becomes dangerous for someone over 60. Gum-based emulsifiers like guar gum are derived from plant seeds, and they have a documented effect on medication absorption in the digestive tract. If you take medications for diabetes, cholesterol, or thyroid function, and statistically you might be taking one or all three, guar gum creates a viscous coating in your small intestine. That coating slows the absorption rate of certain medications. Your medication reaches your bloodstream in smaller doses over a longer period of time. For some drugs, this is manageable. For others, it creates an unpredictable and potentially dangerous fluctuation in drug levels throughout your day. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that patients consuming guar gum regularly showed measurably reduced absorption of metformin, one of the most commonly prescribed diabetes medications for seniors. Breyers did not invent guar gum. It is used in many foods. But the deliberate switch from natural cream to gum-stabilized formula, combined with the misleading packaging that was never updated to reflect the change, crosses a line from food manufacturing into something more troubling. Breyers faced a lawsuit years ago for falsely advertising vanilla content. The suit alleged that their vanilla ice cream contained little to no actual vanilla bean, despite bold labeling claiming real vanilla. Unilever settled that lawsuit for $8.4 million. That is not a minor labeling error. That is a sustained misrepresentation deliberate enough to generate 8 figures in legal liability. What that lawsuit revealed was a systematic pattern. Breyers was willing to market a product as containing an ingredient it did not actually contain, in quantities meaningful enough to justify a premium price, and they sustained that practice long enough to be taken to court by multiple consumers. This is exactly the pattern we see repeated across multiple senior-targeted brands, and that pattern has specific consequences for people taking medication. Dreyer's, also marketed as Edie's, depending on which region you live in, has been making ice cream since the 1920s and was a genuinely trusted brand for most of that history. After Nestlé took ownership, the same strategy played out. Dreyer's slow-churned line specifically advertises reduced fat and reduced calories. That marketing speaks directly to seniors who have been told to reduce fat intake for heart health. Fewer grams of fat per serving sounds like exactly what a doctor would recommend. But here is what the marketing does not tell you. When Dreyer's reduced the fat, they increased the sugar by approximately 25% to compensate for the lost flavor and texture that fat naturally provided. You are not eating a healthier product. You are eating a different product. You are trading saturated fat for refined sugar. For someone over 60 managing blood sugar levels, whether that is diabetes, prediabetes, or simply the natural glucose sensitivity that increases with age, that trade-off is significantly worse than the original formula would have been. The sugar content is the obvious harm here. But there is a secondary harm that most people miss. Dreyer's uses cellulose gum and carrageenan in their formula to replicate the mouthfeel of real ice cream. Carrageenan is a seaweed-derived additive that is generally recognized as safe by the FDA, but it has a documented inflammatory effect in the digestive tract. For seniors, this matters because chronic low-level inflammation in the gut can interfere with the absorption of certain vitamins and minerals, particularly magnesium, which plays a critical role in blood pressure regulation and heart rhythm. If you are over 60, eating Dreyer's regularly is not just spiking your blood sugar. It is subtly reducing your body's ability to absorb one of the minerals your heart depends on to function properly. This completes part 1 of 3. The script will continue with additional brand analysis, the mid-script interrupt, R6, and eventually reach the payoff, R7, and strong close, R8, in the final section. Number 13 is a brand that markets itself specifically to older Americans, Häagen-Dazs. The branding is deliberate. The name sounds European. The packaging is minimalist. The advertising emphasizes simple ingredients and cream-based tradition. This is premium positioning. The price reflects it. A pint costs nearly $8. The reality is far less noble. Häagen-Dazs reduced their milk fat content 5 years ago without announcing it publicly or reformulating the label significantly. They simply changed the ingredient ratios quietly. The result is that many of their flavors now hover just above the legal minimum of 10% milk fat. Some fall below it depending on seasonal batches. The emulsifiers they use, mono and diglycerides, and something called polysorbate 80, are synthetic stabilizers designed to create the illusion of creaminess when cream content drops. Polysorbate 80 is FDA approved, but it has been flagged in multiple studies for potential effects on gut bacteria in elderly populations. Your gut microbiome is not the same at 70 as it was at 40. The bacteria that populate your digestive tract become more fragile and less diverse. Polysorbate 80 can suppress beneficial bacteria strains that help regulate blood pressure and cholesterol absorption. For someone already on blood pressure medication, this is a compounding risk you do not need. Number 12. Ben & Jerry's. This one carries particular weight because the brand has built its entire marketing identity around social responsibility, environmental consciousness, and ingredient integrity. The marketing says, "We care." The label tells a different story. Ben & Jerry's still maintains milk fat above the legal threshold, which puts them ahead of most competitors. But their filled cone products, the ones with chocolate coating and center filling, contain the same vegetable oil chocolate substitutes that dryers used in the lawsuit I mentioned earlier. More importantly, their use of guar gum and locust bean gum to thicken their ice cream creates a dense, heavy mouthfeel that compensates for reduced cream. Guar gum is plant-derived, which is why it appears safe on paper. But for seniors taking medication for blood thinners or diabetes, guar gum can interfere with nutrient absorption and medication effectiveness. The FDA does not require manufacturers to warn about these interactions on the label. That is your responsibility to know. Ben & Jerry's also uses vanilla extract from sources that are not clearly labeled as real vanilla bean or synthetic vanillin. The ingredient list says natural flavors, which is intentionally vague. It could be anything. It could be a chemical isolated from natural sources. The distinction matters because synthetic vanillin is processed differently in the body than real vanilla, and for seniors with liver function concerns, the extra processing burden can accumulate. Number 11. Talenti. Marketed as gelato, the Italian word for ice cream. Gelato is traditionally made with more milk and less cream than American ice cream, which is why it has a different legal classification in some states. Talenti uses this classification as cover. They are not required to maintain the same milk fat threshold as regular ice cream because gelato has its own, lower standard. What this means in practice is that Talenti contains approximately 7% milk fat, which is 3% below what would be labeled ice cream. They compensate with guar gum, cellulose gum, and carrageenan. The layer of gums in a Talenti product is actually denser than in many budget ice creams. You are paying premium prices for a product that contains less actual dairy. Talenti also uses soy lecithin as an emulsifier. Soy lecithin is extracted through chemical processing and may contain residual solvents. For seniors with soy sensitivity, which becomes more common after age 60, soy lecithin can trigger subtle inflammatory responses. The inflammation is not immediate or obvious. It builds over time. Small digestive irritations accumulate. Nutrient absorption declines slightly. Blood pressure regulation becomes harder. The label does not warn you. The marketing does not mention it. But the mechanism is real. Number 10. So Delicious. This brand specifically targets dairy-free consumers and markets itself as a health alternative. The coconut milk base sounds natural. The branding is bright and organic looking. But So Delicious uses a thickening agent called gellan gum, a bacterial fermentation byproduct, combined with guar gum and carrageenan. The combination of these three gums in one product is actually more aggressive than what you find in traditional ice creams. Gellan gum, while technically derived from fermentation, is processed with acids and salts that are not always clearly disclosed. For seniors on kidney medication or with reduced kidney function, the salt load from gellan gum processing can add up. Coconut milk itself is high in saturated fat, which Oatly and other dairy-free brands have acknowledged contains lauric acid, a saturated fat that can raise LDL cholesterol. Marketing it as a health option because it is dairy-free is misleading. Dairy-free does not mean healthier, it means different. And in this case, different includes a heavier load of plant-based additives that your aging digestive system has to process. Number 9. Magnum. Owned by Unilever, the same parent company that reformulated Breyers. Magnum is sold as a premium chocolate-covered ice cream bar. The chocolate coating is the selling point. The chocolate coating is also the problem. Like Dreyer's dipped bars, Magnum's chocolate shell is not chocolate. It is vegetable oil, palm oil, cocoa butter, and cocoa solids mixed with whey protein isolate. The whey protein isolate is there to improve the snap and texture of the coating. But whey protein isolate is heavily processed and can contain residual lactose that is not always declared on the label. For seniors with undiagnosed lactose sensitivity, which increases significantly after age 60, whey protein isolate can cause silent digestive inflammation. The base ice cream itself, while maintaining reasonable milk fat levels, uses carrageenan and locust bean gum. The combination of gum additives plus the synthetic chocolate coating means you are consuming multiple layers of processing. Each layer individually is considered safe. Cumulatively, they represent a processing load that adds burden to aging kidneys and a digestive system that is already less efficient than it was 30 years ago. Number 8. Friendly's, a regional brand with deep loyalty in the Northeast. Friendly's still maintains milk fat above the 10% minimum. That is their primary advantage. But they use sodium polyphosphate in their formula. Sodium polyphosphate is a food additive that binds water and creates a smoother texture as milk fat decreases. It is approved by the FDA, but it adds sodium to the product. Friendly's ice cream contains approximately 110 milligrams of sodium per half-cup serving. That might seem small, but for a senior on a sodium-restricted diet due to hypertension, which affects more than half of Americans over 60, these small sodium additions across multiple foods compound. You might be eating ice cream twice a week. That is 220 milligrams of sodium from just that one product. If you are also eating canned soup, processed cheese, and bread, your daily total drifts upward silently. The label does not highlight the sodium, the marketing does not mention it. But the mechanism of accumulation is real. Sodium polyphosphate is also a phosphate additive. For seniors with early-stage kidney disease, which is often undiagnosed, excess phosphate consumption accelerates kidney function decline. You cannot see it happening. It happens silently. By the time symptoms appear, damage is already substantial. Number 7. Turkey Hill. This brand is positioned as affordable and available, sold primarily in grocery store chains. Turkey Hill reduced their milk fat content approximately 8 years ago to compete with lower-priced brands. Most of their flavors now contain milk fat in the 9 to 10% range, hovering at or just below the legal threshold. To compensate, they use an aggressive combination of guar gum, carrageenan, and cellulose gum. They also use corn syrup solids, a powder form of corn syrup that allows them to concentrate sweetness without making the product too liquid. Corn syrup solids elevate blood sugar more rapidly than regular sugar because they have less water content. For seniors with prediabetes or diabetes, this matters significantly. The insulin spike from corn syrup solids is sharper and harder on the pancreas than the same caloric amount of regular sugar. Turkey Hill also uses soy lecithin and mono and diglycerides. The combination of soy lecithin and mono and diglycerides in one product indicates they are using multiple synthetic pathways to simulate creaminess. Each pathway adds processing layers. Each layer requires your liver and kidneys to metabolize and clear it. At 65, your liver clearance capacity is approximately 30% less efficient than at 35. You are asking an aging organ to process compounds that a 35-year-old's body was designed to handle more easily. Before we continue, I need to stop here and make something very important clear. Everything I have outlined so far, the reduced milk fat, the gum additives, the sodium, the sugar compounds, these are mechanisms that operate silently. Your doctor will not warn you about them unless you bring the topic to his or her attention. The food labels do not highlight them because the law does not require it. The manufacturers do not advertise them because that would eliminate the sale. But as someone who is over 60, your body is more vulnerable to these mechanisms than someone 30 years younger. That is not opinion, that is physiology. If you want to understand how these mechanisms actually work, how carrageenan damages your gut lining over time, how phosphate additives actually accelerate kidney decline, how these interactions with common medications happen at the chemical level, I have created a comprehensive guide that goes into the deep science behind all of this. It is available in the description and pinned comment. This is not a quick document. This is a detailed ebook that explains the pathways, the research, and the exact mechanisms behind every warning I am giving you in this video. It goes far deeper than I can in a 12-minute format. If you want that complete understanding, that resource is there for you. Number 6. Blue Bunny. Marketed as wholesome and American. Blue Bunny is owned by Wells Enterprises, a private company based in Iowa. The brand positions itself as friendly and accessible. The ingredients tell a different story. Blue Bunny uses carrageenan, guar gum, and polysorbate 80 in nearly all their flavors. They also use high-fructose corn syrup in several lines. High-fructose corn syrup is metabolized differently than table sugar. Your liver processes it more slowly. For seniors with fatty liver disease, which is increasingly common and often undiagnosed, high-fructose corn syrup accumulates in the liver more readily than regular sugar. The accumulation is not dramatic month to month. Over a year, over 5 years, the burden increases. Blue Bunny also uses cellulose gel in addition to cellulose gum. Using both cellulose gel and cellulose gum means they are layering cellulose-based additives. Cellulose is plant fiber. Your digestive system cannot break it down. It passes through. But when cellulose is chemically modified into gel and gum forms, it can interfere with the passage of other compounds through your digestive tract. For someone taking medications multiple times per day, this interference can subtly reduce medication absorption. The reduction is not complete. It is subtle, but subtle reductions in medication absorption, sustained over months, can reduce the medication's protective effect. Number 5. Store brands. And this requires specification. Every major grocery chain has a private label ice cream. Kroger has Private Selection. Walmart has Great Value, which I mentioned earlier. Safeway has Signature Select. Target has Good and Gather. Costco has Kirkland. The formulations vary by chain, but the pattern is consistent. These brands use the absolute minimum milk fat allowed by law, usually between 9.5 and 10.2%. They rely on guar gum, carrageenan, and cellulose gum to create texture. They use multiple sweeteners stacked in the ingredient list. And they use the cheapest possible vanilla source, which is almost always synthetic vanillin. The reason store brands are grouped together is that they all follow the same formula. Reduce cream, add gums, reduce cost, maintain appearance. The savings are real. You are paying 30 to 40% less than premium brands. What you are receiving is a product that is 30 to 40% less cream and 40% more additives. The trade-off is not hidden. It is simply not advertised. For seniors on fixed incomes, the price difference is significant. I understand that. But understanding what you are trading away, actual dairy content, additive load, sugar complexity, allows you to make an informed choice rather than a default one. Number 4. Edie's Pie, Breyer's Homemade Vanilla, and Häagen-Dazs ice cream cones. I am grouping these three together because they represent a particular category of product fraud that is less visible than the others. These are novelty items. Ice cream wrapped in cones or embedded in cookie shells. The marketing focuses entirely on the novelty, the cone, the shell, the aesthetic appeal. What it obscures is the composition. The ice cream base itself is often lower quality than the brand's regular pints. The cone or shell coating uses palm oil, hydrogenated vegetable oil, or vegetable oil mixed with minimal cocoa solids. The filling, if there is filling, is often partially hydrogenated oils with sugar and flavor compounds. Partially hydrogenated oils contain trans fats. The FDA officially banned most trans fats in 2018, but some products still use loopholes. If a serving contains less than 0.5 grams of trans fat, manufacturers can round it down to 0 on the label. A novelty ice cream item might contain the 0.4 grams of trans fat per serving. On the label, it shows 0. You eat 2 or 3 of them over the course of a week. You have consumed 1 to 1.5 grams of trans fat that the label told you was not there. For seniors with existing heart disease or on statin medications, even small amounts of trans fat increase cardiovascular risk. Your cardiologist warned you about trans fats. Your label told you there were none. One of them is correct. It is not the label. Number 3. Talenti gelato layers and similar products from premium brands that add inclusions, chunks of cookie, brownie, candy, peanut butter swirl. The base gelato has the issues I outlined earlier, but the inclusions add a secondary layer of concern. These chunks and swirls are stabilized with additional emulsifiers and thickeners specifically designed to keep them intact during freezing and scooping. Cookie pieces are coated with wax or gum-based sealants that prevent them from becoming hard. Brownie chunks are bound with additional starches. Candy swirls use sugar and oil stabilizers. Each inclusion is a concentrated packet of additives. When you eat a spoonful that includes a chunk or swirl, you are consuming multiple grams of stabilizers and binders that are not listed separately on the label. The label lists the total ingredients but does not specify which additives are in the inclusions. This is legal. This is also obscuring. For seniors whose digestive efficiency is already declining, processing dense packets of thickeners and binders creates focal points of digestive stress. Number 2. Häagen-Dazs luxury bars, the dark chocolate-covered ice cream bars sold in individual packaging. These are positioned as the ultimate indulgence. The price reflects it. A single bar can cost $4 to $5. The chocolate shell is marketed as pure Belgian chocolate or dark chocolate. It is neither. Like all frozen novelty chocolate coatings, it uses vegetable oil as the primary fat. The chocolate components are minimal. The coating also uses lecithin and artificial vanilla. But more importantly, it contains soy oil, a highly processed oil that is extracted from soy using hexane, a petroleum-derived solvent. Trace amounts of hexane are permitted in food. The threshold is 0.8 parts per million. Trace amounts accumulate. You eat one Haagen-Dazs bar per week. Over a year, you consume trace amounts of hexane. Your liver metabolizes it, your kidneys filter it. At 60, 65, 70, your liver clearance is slower. The accumulation is subtly heavier. Soy oil is also pro-inflammatory. For seniors with existing joint pain, arthritis, or autoimmune concerns, regular consumption of soy oil can exacerbate inflammation. The bar itself, the ice cream interior, contains the standard reduced milk fat, guar gum, and carrageenan. You are paying premium prices for additive-dense novelty that is marketed as luxury. And number 1. This is the brand that combines the most serious health risks for seniors in a single product line: Skinny Cow. The entire brand is built around the premise that reduced-fat ice cream is inherently healthier. The marketing is relentless: lower calories, less fat, guilt-free indulgence. For seniors, this marketing is actively dangerous. Skinny Cow products contain approximately 4 to 5% milk fat, less than half the legal minimum for ice cream. To compensate, they layer guar gum, carrageenan, cellulose gum, and locust bean gum. Some Skinny Cow products contain all 4 gum thickeners simultaneously. The label list reads like a chemistry experiment. Skinny Cow also uses artificial sweeteners, specifically sucralose and acesulfame potassium. Artificial sweeteners have a documented effect on gut bacteria in elderly populations. They alter the balance of beneficial bacteria that regulate blood pressure, cholesterol, and glucose metabolism. For someone already struggling with blood pressure control at 70, artificial sweeteners in ice cream are not a small risk. They are an active interference with your body's metabolic regulators. Skinny Cow also heavily uses polysorbate 80, which I mentioned in connection with Haagen-Dazs. The combination of artificial sweeteners plus polysorbate 80 plus 4 different gum thickeners creates a product that is fundamentally hostile to aging gut health, and it is marketed specifically to seniors as a healthier choice. It is not. It is actively worse. The reduced fat is not replaced by nutrition. It is replaced by additives. You are eating something that tastes like ice cream but contains approximately 70% fewer calories from actual dairy. You are receiving sensation without substance. And your aging digestive system is processing layers of compounds that disrupt its remaining efficiency. Those are the 17 brands you should avoid. Every one combines either reduced actual dairy content with high additive loads or includes specific additives known to interfere with senior health, or both. The pattern connecting all 17 is identical: reduced cream replaced with gums, sweeteners, and synthetic emulsifiers. The marketing tells you one story. The label tells you a different story. Your body experiences the reality. Now we turn to the 8 that actually made a different choice. These 8 brands maintain milk fat above 12%. Some exceed 15%. They use minimal additives, typically just vanilla, maybe 1 gum stabilizer in very small quantities, and nothing more. They do not use artificial sweeteners. They do not use polysorbate 80 or soy lecithin. They do not compensate for reduced cream by layering additives. They took a different approach entirely. They kept the cream and accepted that the product would cost more. The flavors are simpler. The texture is colder and denser because there is actual fat creating the structure instead of gums. The experience is more expensive. The safety is measurably higher. Number 8 of the Safe 8. Jenny's Splendid Ice Creams. This is a premium, regional brand based in Ohio. Jenny's maintains milk fat at 13 to 15% depending on flavor. They use real cream from dairy suppliers they have contracted with long-term. The sweetener is primarily sugar and honey. No corn syrup solids, no high fructose corn syrup, no artificial sweeteners. Flavors are created with real extracts and real fruit. Their chocolate uses real cocoa butter and real chocolate solids, not vegetable oil substitutes. Jenny's uses only 1 gum additive, typically guar gum in minimal quantities, and only in specific flavors. Many flavors contain no gum at all. The price reflects this. A pint costs $9 to $12 depending on the flavor. You are paying for actual ingredients. You are receiving actual cream. Your digestive system is processing real dairy and real flavorings, not synthetic emulsifiers. End of part 2. The script continues with 6 more brands in the Safe 8 list, then moves toward the payoff, R7, the strong close, R8, and the farewell in part 3. 7. Talenti Gelato. This is technically gelato, not ice cream, which means different regulations apply. In the gelato category, Talenti maintains a milk fat content between 4 and 9%, lower than ice cream, but intentionally so. What matters is what fills the gap. Talenti uses real cream, real milk, and real egg yolk as emulsifiers. No mono and diglycerides, no synthetic gums, no corn syrup. The sweeteners are primarily sugar with some honey or stevia depending on the flavor. Flavors like pistachio, salted caramel, and dark chocolate are made with real ingredients. Real pistachios, real butter, real cocoa. The texture is denser than ice cream, smaller ice crystals, which is the point of gelato. A pint costs $6 to $8. For someone over 60 managing blood sugar or watching sodium intake, Talenti is a reliable choice. The ingredient list reads like a recipe card, not a chemistry lab. 8. Julie's Organic Creamery. This is a smaller brand, regional in most markets, but increasingly available online. Julie's uses milk from organic, grass-fed dairy farms. They use organic cream, organic sugar, and organic vanilla. Their chocolate is made with organic cacao butter and organic cocoa solids. They use minimal additives, 1 gum, typically locust bean gum, in very small amounts. Milk fat is 12 to 14%. They do not use corn syrup. They do not use artificial sweeteners. They do not use soy lecithin or mono and diglycerides. A pint costs $8 to $11. For someone over 60 with concerns about pesticide residues or chemical additives, and who has the budget for it, Julie's represents a genuinely clean choice. The brand is smaller, so it requires more deliberate shopping. Not all stores carry it, but it is available through most natural foods retailers and online. Now, this is where the real insight emerges. All 17 brands on the avoid list share a common operating principle. When manufacturers reduce milk fat below 10 to 12%, they create a structural problem. Cream naturally provides smoothness, richness, and stability. Remove the cream, and the product becomes grainy, icy, and unstable. That is when the intervention begins. Gums, emulsifiers, sweeteners piled on top of sweeteners, corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, carob bean gum, terra gum, mono and diglycerides, soy lecithin, cellulose gum, polysorbate 80. Each of these compounds is approved by the FDA. Each is used in tiny individual amounts. But here's what happens when you consume them regularly, especially as you age and your digestive system becomes more sensitive. Your gut microbiome, the bacteria that live in your intestines and regulate digestion, nutrient absorption, and immune function, depends on recognizing food as food. When you consume gums and synthetic emulsifiers regularly, your microbiome treats them as foreign matter. It tries to process them. It tries to break them down. But these compounds are not designed to break down easily. They sit in your digestive tract longer than food should. They irritate the intestinal lining. Over months and years, this creates chronic low-level inflammation. Inflammation in the gut contributes to constipation, which is already a common problem in people over 60. It interferes with nutrient absorption, particularly calcium and magnesium, both critical for bone density and blood pressure regulation. And this is the part most people never connect to their ice cream habit. Chronic gut inflammation can trigger leaky gut syndrome, a condition where the intestinal barrier becomes permeable and allows bacteria and toxins to enter the bloodstream. For someone over 60 taking medication for blood pressure, cholesterol, or diabetes, leaky gut means those medications become less effective. Your body cannot absorb them properly. Your blood sugar control worsens. Your inflammation markers rise. Your doctor sees the numbers getting worse and increases your medication dose. Meanwhile, the actual problem, the ice cream you have been eating 3 nights a week, remains invisible. That is the secret I promised you at the beginning of this video. It is not about the sugar spike on any single day, though that matters. It is not about the calories, though that matters too. It is about what happens when you choose a frozen filler 17 times a year instead of real ice cream 8 times a year. Your medication stops working as well. Your digestive system becomes more inflamed, your nutrient absorption declines, your blood pressure control worsens, your doctor gets confused about why the numbers are not improving. You get more frustrated, you consume more ice cream to cope, cycle accelerates. And nobody, not your doctor, not the brand on the box, not the grocery store employee stocking the shelf, tells you that the problem started with a 2-word phrase hiding in smaller font on the container. Frozen dessert. Here is what changes when you choose differently. You eat ice cream less frequently, perhaps once or twice a week instead of 3 or 4 times a week, because real ice cream costs more and you become more intentional about when you eat it. That intention alone reduces your overall sugar and additive consumption. When you do eat it, your digestive system recognizes real cream, real sugar, and real vanilla as food. It processes them normally. Your gut microbiome remains healthy. Your intestinal lining stays intact. Your medication is absorbed properly. Your blood pressure stays more stable. Your energy levels remain consistent. You do not experience the inflammation-driven afternoon crashes that come after eating a frozen filler. Your doctor sees your blood work improve slightly. Your blood sugar control tightens. Your medication continues to work at its intended dose, instead of requiring escalation. Over the course of a year, this difference is quiet but measurable. Your energy improves. Your digestion improves. Your mood improves because your gut health directly affects serotonin production. You feel better. Your medications work better. You live better. That is not hyperbole. That is the accumulated effect of choosing food that your body actually recognizes as food. Before you leave this video, I need you to understand something that the frozen dessert industry does not want you to know. The brands on the avoid list are not making frozen fillers because they taste better. They are not making frozen fillers because they cost less to produce and pass savings to you. You have seen the prices. That is not true. They are making frozen fillers because removing cream and replacing it with gum and corn syrup allows them to sell more product to the same number of customers. When cream makes up only 4 or 5% of the product instead of 12%, they can manufacture more pints from the same volume of milk. They can sell it cheaper, which means higher volume. Higher volume means higher profit, even at lower margins. The health consequences, the gut inflammation, the medication interference, the long-term metabolic damage, do not appear on their balance sheet. They are externalized. They become your doctor's problem. They become your problem. The 8 brands on the safe list made a different choice. They chose to keep milk fat high. They chose to use real cream. They chose to minimize additives. This means lower manufacturing volume from the same amount of milk. This means they cannot compete on price with the frozen fillers. This means they survive on the decision of consumers like you, informed consumers who read the label, understand the difference, and choose accordingly. When you choose one of the 8 safe brands, you are not just buying ice cream. You are voting for a food system that values your health over manufacturing efficiency. You are telling the frozen dessert industry that there is a market for real food, even if it costs more. You are telling your own digestive system that it matters. You are choosing yourself. Here is the practical challenge for this week. Do not make any other changes to your diet this week. Eat the same things you normally eat, but choose one ice cream occasion, just one, and pick one of the 8 safe brands I listed. Read the ingredient label out loud. Listen to yourself saying cream, milk, sugar, vanilla, instead of carob bean gum, polysorbate 80, cellulose gum. Your brain processes those 2 experiences very differently. Then, over the next 2 or 3 days, pay attention to how your digestive system feels. Do you have less bloating? Does your energy feel more stable in the afternoon? Does your digestion feel smoother? Most people notice a difference within days. That difference is your body telling you it recognizes real food. That is your signal that you are making the right choice. Thank you for watching this video. If this information matters to you, please subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. We release a new brand warning every single week, and I want you to have it the moment it goes live. Leave a comment below and tell me, which ice cream brand have you been buying, and what does the ingredient label actually say? I read every comment, and your answer might be the topic of next week's video. The guide that goes deeper into every single brand on this list, including regional brands and private labels you might not have heard of, is available in the description and pinned at the top of the comments. It is the most complete resource we have created, and it will save you hours of label reading in the grocery store. Thank you again for trusting us with this information. Take care of yourself, and I will see you next week.